don't know why when we do these programs I get a dry throat.
Yeah. What should we do with these?
Let's throw them away.
Yeah.
You got to think.
I kind of feel bad having to throw away all this plastic stuff.
Yeah, well, we live in a
disposable plastic society.
We live in a throwaway society. Just throw it on the floor there for the time being, I guess.
I think you'd be able to see it down there. Yeah, I guess that kind of goes along with our program today, because it seems like marriages have almost become a disposable commodity. I was talking to a young couple not too long ago, and they weren't married, they were living together, and every time they got into a fight, the guy would say something like, time to recycle, time to recycle. You know, it's like, just throw me away and get another boyfriend, I guess.
Isn't that
and
incredible?
that seems to be the way a lot of people are thinking today, that just like these plastic cups we hit under the table here, that a marriage is, if it just doesn't work out, I guess I'll just throw it away and get a new one.
I heard somebody say, I think it was just a week or so ago, they were talking about first marriages as being the trial marriage.
The trial marriage?
The trial marriage. In other words,
so you expect the fact that
you get one for nothing, and if it doesn't work out, you throw it away and then go for the real thing.
Go for the real thing.
But this phenomenon of divorce is big, and it's not just big in our country.
It's a global problem.
It's a global problem.
I was just doing some research not too long ago, and I found out that China is actually having epidemic divorce problems starting there, which was really surprising to me. But you know, Dick, when I was doing the research on trying to find out about what countries had the highest divorce rate, what one would you guess?
Well, you want me to say our own country?
I was thinking America would be probably number 1 or number 2.
But it isn't?
It isn't. No, I was surprised. Actually, Sweden has a 65% divorce rate. And after that is Belgium with 59%, and then Czech Republic. In the 9th position, 9th runner-up, is 49% for the United States. It's almost 50% of marriages end in divorce. The interesting thing about these statistics is they're not accurate. They can't be accurate.
No.
Because these are only dealing with people who have been married and have legally gone through a divorce process. But you and I know that a lot of people are choosing to live together today, especially in European cultures.
And then they would just be moving out. And, do you know,
there's no way to track all of that.
I heard that 75% in this country, the United States, of the people that are going in for marriage licenses are already living together before they're married.
Oh, really? So it's a real common occurrence. People are like trying it out. They're like test driving the car before they actually buy it.
Well, and the effects of when they go in and they live together before they're married, their chances of being able to stay married are greatly reduced. In other words, I think maybe 75% of those won't be able to make it.
Really?
In other words, even though they're saying, we're going to give it a try, which would make it say, well, this is really going to work. Really, if they give it a try, it's really not going to work.
Yeah, maybe marriage has become a disposable commodity. You know, for our viewers in United Kingdom, I was surprised that they say right now the divorce rate in Wales and England is at its highest rate since 1996.
I really believe that the most precious of all human relationships is of marriage.
Absolutely. What makes you think that?
Well, for the simple reason of the stats. In other words, if we do what the culture tells us to do, it's going to end up bad. There's a kind of an anatomy of the broken home.
Yes.
You know, when we go on our computers, you know, when we right-click, they have properties. And I really think that in our marriages, we had better right-click and go to properties and uncheck some of the boxes. Because if we don't, Jeff, our marriages are going to be doomed. Because the culture is not set up for a successful marriage. The culture is set up to ruin a marriage.
As a lot of people watch the program today too, and as we go through the anatomy of a broken home or the anatomy that causes a divorce to happen, I think that they'll recognize that some of the people that are watching the program will recognize they're in one of these phases that we'll be going through. But that takes us to our opening text today too. You know, we have a special theme text, and it's Psalms 127 verse 1. And it says, "Except the Lord build a house, they that labor it build in vain." And I think this is really the foundational principle of why there's so many divorces and so many separations and marriage problems in society today, because people are not building on the right foundation. And if you start your marriage relationship out on a wrong foundation to begin with, from there on you're just building on a faulty foundation, and it's just bound to collapse eventually.
Well, the first phase for this sort of anatomy of a broken home is the romantic phase. Now, you would think that romantic would ensure success. But you know, there's a word that's being connected with romantic these days.
What's that?
Sexy.
Sexy?
Yeah. Have you heard that? This word is everywhere. Everything is sexy. And so as soon as young people start having a relationship, immediately the word sexy comes in. I don't know what the statistics are on premarital sexual relations, but you know, it's getting to be...
It's very, very high.
It's very, very high.
I mean, there are stats that show that kids that are 11, 12, and 13 now are having, you know, sexual relationships. And it's because they're fostering this on watching the television, because they have a false idea about what real, true relations are made up of. And look at the situation now with the gay marriage. You know, this is really a big controversy here in the United States. It's because people have misinterpreted really what the marriage covenant's all about.
In other words, if we're going to see marriage from a sexual viewpoint, we're probably going to be doomed to failure.
Absolutely.
Were you quite a guy for dating?
Yeah, because I wasn't raised in a Christian home, and you know, I don't really believe in dating. Let's just get this clear, okay, Dick? When I was not a Christian, I dated, and all of my friends agreed with me that dating was just a recreational pastime. That's all it was, you know. And then if you got, quote, lucky and you found the right girl, you might eventually get married. But that really wasn't an option when you were dating, because it was just a recreational pastime. This weekend you date one girl, that weekend you try out another one. It's like going out and trying different automobiles, you know.
You know, I wasn't the kind of a dating guy.
Well, you were raised in a Christian home, though.
Well, but I think it was almost a family trait, because my dad wasn't either.
Oh, really?
Do you know my dad proposed to my mother on their first date? I mean, now, you know, that's not dating around. You know.
Did they get divorced?
No. They made it. Oh, they made it. They made it through the 50 years or whatever it was.
In the 70s, in the late 60s, the 70s, the hippie movement came in, and there was this idea of free love. You know, we hear a lot about love, but really it's not love at all. What it is infatuation and lust. Love can always wait to give. Lust can never wait to get.
Interesting.
Love can always wait to give. Lust can never wait to get. And so many people want it today. They want it now. And so they want all the benefits of a marriage relationship without making the commitment. And that's one of the reasons it's bound for failure at the very beginning. But getting back to this idea of what you were saying about the dating idea, the problem with this is that people confuse reality with infatuation. And two people become infatuated with each other. First, there's maybe a physical attraction. They start sharing dreams with each other and ideas.
Well, it's hormone-driven to some
It's hormone-driven, yeah. But there's no reality on how to achieve those goals or how to fulfill those desires. And so it's built all upon these feelings.
But you know, there are cultures that don't date at all, or I guess I can safely say they don't date at all, because there's cultures in South Asia where the parents work it out. You know, I went to a wedding once in Pakistan, and it was in a village, and so I said to the groom, I said, do you know the girl you're going to marry? And he said, no. He said, I saw her once from a distance, though.
Oh, you're kidding me.
But the interesting thing is, even without this so-called courtship and dating, which we would say is indispensable, these people will be married and they'll stay married. You know, which brings up the question, is it necessary to be in love? In other words, maybe I ought to put it this way, is marriage based on love? Or is it based on something more than love?
It's, of course, if we say it's not based on love, everybody will just go, oh, what are they saying? Yeah. But of course, marriage is based on more than love. Love has to be a foundational principle, but it has to be based on commitment, because to be honest with you, there's a lot of times where when the infatuation wears off and reality comes home, that, like my wife and I, we've been married for 26 years. There's times in your marriage relationship where things don't always go smoothly. And it's that commitment that we've made to each other that makes us work through that situation and hang in there to work through the problem we're having to make that relationship last. If there's no commitment, if there's no marriage vow, it's easy just to say, time to recycle, time to recycle.
You know, my wife and I were discussing this matter a few weeks ago, and when I presented this kind of a concept that marriage is based on more than love and is based on commitment, she couldn't quite see it that way. But I said, if we're going to say that marriage is based on love, then these people who are living together without being married, if you were to ask them, do you love this person? Oh, I love them very much. Well, then why don't you go ahead and marry them? No, I don't want to, but I don't want to make a commitment.
Yeah, basically what they're saying is that they're afraid to take the risk. Because I've asked some young people, why don't you get married? If you love the guy and you guys are living together, why don't you get married? And they say something like, well, I don't know if I'm really ready for that. You know, I'm afraid of getting a divorce. I saw some people go through divorce, and I don't know if I really want to have that happen. And so they're afraid to make the commitment because they're afraid to have to face the consequences of what might happen if the relationship doesn't work out. So they want their cake and they want to eat it too, so to speak.
Now we're kind of giving the anatomy of a broken home, and so we start out with a kind of a romantic phase, and so they're all hormonized and they're infatuated with each other, let's suppose. But then let's say they go ahead and get married for whatever reason, and then we enter into that honeymoon phase.
It goes into phase 2.
I remember our honeymoon. Do you remember your honeymoon?
I certainly do.
Yeah, we went to Daytona Beach, and I thought, man, this is going to be really great, but my wife doesn't like to go in the water. And so there goes all the trouble of the beach. Maybe we should have gone to the desert.
But that's supposed to be romantic. I mean, go on your honeymoon, go to the beach and stuff. But see, that's the problem with the honeymoon phase, or the early part of the marriage phase, when that first year of adjusting, because all of a sudden there's a little bit more of a reality that starts coming home. The infatuation wears off, and you wake up one morning, you look over at this person and you say, I'm going to be with this person the rest of my life. And then you start finding out interesting things like, I've heard women who come to me and they're wanting counsel, or men that come to me because they're just newly married and they're having some problems in their marriage relationship. He says, he drives me crazy. He leaves his smelly socks all over the bedroom. And then he says something like, well, you know, what really drives me nuts is she squeezes the tube of toothpaste in the center, and I like to roll it up on the ends. And then you start finding there's these little things that they never knew about each other, that they're kind of like quirks, you know, that kind of start bugging each other, that they really didn't know that much about when they were in the infatuation stage. Infatuation makes people blind, you know that?
But you know, maybe this brings up a good point, because some people go to study more to buy a car than they do to get married. Have you thought about that?
Really good
In other
point.
words, when you buy a car, you go look at the consumer reports and you get the automotive, the history of the car. My wife and I dated. We met when it was the last part of our freshman year in college. And so then we dated the second year. We were engaged the third year. I can say that in our marriage that there were very few surprises in the honeymoon stage. But obviously, if you've been going together for 2 months, it's hard. There will be some surprises.
Well, you've heard of company manners before.
Exactly.
Yeah, when people come to stay at your home and they're on their best behavior, but then after they've been there for a few months, then you start to see how they really are. Or employment's the same way. You know, when someone applies for a job, they look so good and they do so well. And it's the same way like when you're in the courtship mode or the dating mode. You know, everybody's on their best behavior. You're giving those little affections and things. And then you get married, and it's like one guy I heard a story about when the honeymoon was over and his first day to go to work, his wife was in the kitchen making breakfast. He sat down and he had a list, kind of like this one. He said, honey, sit down, I want to have a talk with you. And he said, now that we're married, let's just get everything straight here. And he had this list, I want you to do this, I want you to do that. And of course, their marriage lasted about 1 year.
When I talk to young women, I'll say to them, now you girls have two natures that run side by side. One is you have a mother nature, and then you have a sweetheart nature. And before you're married, these are both targeted on the man that you're dating. Okay. And I said, be really careful with this, because it's one thing to be a sweetheart, it's another thing to be a mother, because a mother will say, well, he's such a good boy. I think I can help him. And I tell the girls, I say, now I don't mean to put us fellas down, but I say, a fellow will never be more after you marry him. He's going to be less. Now how much less, we really don't know. And so I tell the young women, I say, if you think that by marrying this man, you're going to make him a better man, just forget about it. He's going to be less. So what you see is what you're going to get, and you want to decide right then if that's what you want to spend your life with. Dick.
You're watching Laymen Ministries Crosstalk, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Laymen Ministries bookstore carries hundreds of books, Bibles, resource materials, videotapes, and audio tapes, all at discounted prices. To receive your free catalog, write or call Laymen Ministries, 414 Zapada Road, St. Mary's, Idaho, 83861, or call 1-800-245-1844. Or if you would like a free copy of our magazine, Laymen Ministry News, with exciting mission stories from around the world and theological articles written with the layman in mind, write or call Laymen Ministries, 414 Zapada Road, St. Mary's, Idaho, 83861. 1-800-245-1844. You can also visit us online at www.lmn.org, and make sure to check out the links to our catalog and magazines.
So now what were you just saying about this
Well,
situation with young boys and
but I was just
not young boys, men when they're dating.
No, just the other way around. In other words, I tell the young women, I say, you have a mother instinct, and you have a sweetheart instinct. And so when you look at this man, there's some part of you that says, oh, he's a good guy. I think I can change him. And I just want to say, you know, to the young ladies, you're not going to change your man. He might change you, make your life miserable for you, huh?
Those you're talking about the next phase. That's the reality phase. And you start to really realize this is the way you are, this is the way I am, and then we're bent on trying to change each other. Because our idea of what we expect out of our spouse isn't really what we thought it was. And so we start to say, well, you know, you should show me more attention. You used to bring me flowers, or you know, I think it's your responsibility to have to take the garbage out and wash the dishes. You shouldn't always expect me to do that.
But this brings up another question, Jeff, and that is, should we try to change each other at all? You know, I feel that this is probably one of the biggest problems in our marriages. If I don't feel that my wife accepts me, sometimes I'll cut off my nose to spite my face. I was telling a young wife not long ago, I said, if you want to change your husband, you cannot do it by saying, I think you do this wrong, or I think you do that wrong. Us men, we will, if we change, and when we change because we think we're enjoying the approval of our spouse. And I tell these wives, if you want to change your man, then you want to build him up. Now, our spouse might say, lie to him? No, but build him up. We don't do well when we're being put down.
And so what ends up happening is people get in this dilemma. All of a sudden reality comes home and you go, this is who I married. I don't like it. I'm not happy. And they start maybe being a little flirtatious with somebody else. They get some attention from somebody else, and they start alienating themselves.
But doesn't something like this really have to do with selfishness? In other words,
absolutely, selfishness is the root of it.
In other words, you're not who I think that you ought to be. Let me tell you an experience I had one day. I was walking along with my wife, and I said, would you be happy if I dropped dead? And she kind of looked at me like I was out of my mind. But what I really meant was, am I allowing you to be who you really are? And I've done that in my marriage, Jeff. I have set my wife free, even to disagree with me. Because during much of my marriage, if we would get into a little discussion about something, I'd try to get her to see it my way.
Yeah, see, that gets into the thing where we're trying to change the person
We're going to try to change the person.
way we want. And so when we see that we can't change them, then we back up. And we can go into isolationism. And so oftentimes a wife, if you have kids, all of a sudden the wife will get really involved with the children and preoccupy herself with that, or maybe she'll start looking for a career outside the home because she wants to find some kind of social identity outside of the home. The man will bury himself into his work, and he's trying to provide for his family, you know. That's what he's thinking, but he'll consume himself with his work or with hobby, with other guys, sports, going out hunting, fishing, things like that. And slowly they start isolating themselves.
They start to live different lives.
Different lives inside. And unfortunately, that can lead to some really serious problems because it leads to extramarital affairs. And of course, soon as our viewers hear the idea of extramarital affairs, they think going out and having an affair, you know, with another person of the opposite sex, or nowadays even sometimes the same sex, because we live in such a perverse society. But the truth is that there's a lot of different extramarital affairs. You know, it could be that the extramarital affair could be, basically they're all just escape from dealing with the issues, but they could be stuff such as activity affairs. The husband, or particularly the mother, can get involved in so many different social activities, or the husband's involved, even in church. You know, they can be involved with church activities.
The point that you're making is that basically the relationship between the husband and wife is falling apart, and they're starting to do their own lives. Yeah. No, but what you're doing, you're taking the word extramarital and you're stretching it a little bit. But I understand what you because usually when we say that,
there is a. I'll just show you how far this can go. We were at a marriage conference, and the guy was talking about different kinds of extramarital affairs, and of course people automatically always think it's another woman or another guy. They automatically think that. And the guy said, well, some guys bury themselves in their laptop computers, and my wife elbowed me. And a couple days later I was in my office in the back of my house, and I heard her coming down the hallway. As soon as she opened up the door to my office, I grabbed my laptop computer and I started kissing the screen. And she goes, this is going too far.
That's right.
She's got a great sense of humor though. So.
Do you know, not only only sometimes do we do this, shall we say, on purpose, we can do it unconsciously.
Yeah.
You know, have you ever heard of the empty nest syndrome? See, it's possible when our children are at home, we have something that brings us together, but we're really not friends. Our lives are really separate, you know, like the soccer mom.
The kids are just the bonding element.
Are the bonding element. And so our marriages can actually fall apart because while we had the children for so many years, we weren't friends. Each one of us was doing our own thing in the marriage relationship. By the way, you know, I heard someone say not long ago, I don't know if you would agree with this, but the best thing we can do for our children is not be a good dad or a good mom, but be a good husband or wife. The thing that holds the marriage together is not being good moms and dads, but being good husbands and wives. And to some extent, we've become so preoccupied with being moms and dads that we're not being husbands and wives. And and how does it end up for the children? They end up in single-parent homes.
Yeah, and before that, a lot of times what happens is the marriage relationship becomes a business deal. It's like a 50-50 plan. You know, all of a sudden it's like, I'm kind of fed up with some of the things she's doing, and she's kind of fed up with some of the things I'm doing, and I'm like, well, my behavior will get this much better if your behavior will get this much better, and I'll meet you 30% of the way if you meet me 30% of the way, and if you just improve a little bit more, I'll come a little bit farther, and I'll tell you what, if everything works really good, I'll meet you in the middle. Instead of giving 100% and 100%, which we're talking about selflessness and looking out for the other person, we're looking out only for ourselves, and we're saying, look, I'm only going to respond if I see you respond first. And it turns into a business deal. In fact, I know some guys that they want to have a sexual relationship with their spouse, you know, they are really nice to them that day. And it's all just a business deal, you know. But there's no real love and catering and...
women are not responsive to that.
No, they're not responsive to that.
That marriage is not about myself, it's about the other person. That I don't bring to a marriage a 50% person, I bring a 100% person. In fact, maybe marriage is a contradiction of the mathematics which says 50 and 50 make 100.
What does Ephesians chapter 5 verse 31 say? Do you remember? It says, this is what it says. It says, for this cause a man shall leave his father and his mother, and shall be joined unto his wife, and the two shall be one flesh. Now that's not good math. I mean, two and two doesn't equal one, but in God's sight it does. And this is the problem with what culture is doing, is culture saying, look out for number one. So two people get married, 2 plus 2 equals 2.
Right.
And what God wants is 2 plus 2 equals 1.
Absolutely.
And some people say, yeah, I believe that, and I'm the one. Well, that's not what it's about. It's about the other person, and the two actually becoming one together.
We started out the program by talking about the stats on divorce. And the culture is actually encouraging divorce. They'll say, well, you married the wrong person, you know, or God wants me to be happy, or in Florida we have a lemon law for cars. Well, maybe I married a lemon. But you know, divorce doesn't solve problems. It brings on the biggest problems that could ever come to our lives.
I had a couple come to me, and they were having some serious problems, and I said, fine, you know, if you want to get a divorce, it's no problem. I can help you make those arrangements, but I want to let you know what you're involved with here. And I just started laying down all the things about, first of all, having to the paperwork, and then going through the emotional trauma of separating their things, and then dealing with the kids and visitations and working out that whole thing. I said, do you really want to do this? And they started going, well, we're not really ready for that yet. And I said, well, seriously, think about it, because it's not a fun thing. I
think that parents everywhere need to realize that the people who never recover from a divorce are the children. It really ruins their lives forever. And it's not just when they're 10 or 11 and 12 or 16, 17, 18. I think it leaves a mark for life. And it opens a Pandora's box that's never closed.
So we've been going through this anatomy here, and we start out with the romantic phase, which was the infatuation phase, and then the honeymoon phase, where you start making adjustments to each other and having the realization, also being a little bit disappointed on the defects of the other person. We went into the reality phase. Finally, we went into the retaliation phase, and that's what we've been discussing a little bit here, where fighting maybe takes place. A man will bury himself in his work. But then the last phase is the rejection phase. It's finally coming to the point where there's physical and emotional separation in a relationship, and they just basically say it's not going to work, and then they want to bring an end to it. I'm a little old-fashioned. I believe that a man and a woman should fall in love, get to know each other, and through proper courtship, work through the different things, and finally make that commitment, and that commitment should be for eternity.
It should be for life.
For eternity.
I think one of the things that we have to look at seriously is the fact that we're not talking about divorce as it relates to those who make no profession of faith. Divorce is just about the same now for Christians as for non-Christians.
Isn't that interesting?
You see, here's a question that I have to ask, and if there's some of our viewers out there today who are right in the middle, who are way down in this anatomy of a broken home, Is it ever too late to back out? I say it is. And the reason I believe that, Jeff, is 1 Corinthians 13, which describes how love acts. You know, when it says here, love is long-suffering, kind, it doesn't envy, it's not proud, it doesn't behave itself unseemingly, it seeks not its own, it doesn't have a temper, it is not thinking about evil, it's not happy about iniquity, it rejoices in truth. What would happen if wherever a person is who's watching this program today, and they're really in a mess, they would say, well, you know, it's just my husband's fault. I'm not sure I can change another person, but I would like to think that the Holy Spirit of God can make a big impact in my heart.
Absolutely. I heard somebody summarize this in just a short sentence once. They said, if selfishness and pride were set aside, 5 minutes could settle most difficulties. And you look at situations where a husband and wife are disagreeing about something or an issue, and they're dealing with the emotions coming up and everything, that if selfishness and pride were set aside, 5 minutes could settle that difficulty.
And the foundation is, except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it. The culture is offering us one model. If we follow that model, it's fatal if taken according to directive. If somebody has a commitment to Jesus, that should be first.
That should be the foundation.
If I've made a commitment to Jesus and they've made a commitment to Jesus, then there'll be lots of problems that won't exist, or when they come, fade away.
I've known young Christian couples, though, that are doing it all right, and they're going to get married in about 7 weeks, and they come to me and say, well, Jeff, what do you think? You know, I think you should get married. And I say, well, can I ask you one question? And they say, what's that? I said, have you had a good fight yet? And they said, well, no, we've gotten along perfectly. I said, then you shouldn't get married. Because I said, you need to have one, at least good disagreement before you get married, because you need to see if you can work through your disagreements. And I said, that's an important part of courtship, just as much as giving her flowers and picking her up and taking her and doing things. You know, you have to learn if you can, you know, manage money together. You have to be able to learn if you can work through difficulties and trials together. And that's, to me, all part of laying that foundation before the actual commitment's made.
Well, of course, I understand what you mean when you say had a good fight. I don't think there are any good ones. What you meant is, have you had problems and resolved them without fighting?
I'm just using local vernacular. It's not really a good fight, but I use that just kind of teasing young people because they identify with it.
I understand.
But people need to have a disagreement, because if they don't know how to work through a problem now, how are they going to work through the problem when they're in phase 3, when the reality stage comes home?
That's right.
They go, well, I didn't know that marriage was going to have this. You know, Dick, one of the things that I really think that creates a lot of problems for young people especially is this misinformed idea of what they have about what romance is and marriage is about, because they're watching television. The programs and the advertisements are lying to people about what reality is in relationships.
Well, there's a lot of people out there watching the program that undoubtedly could be anywhere along the way in this anatomy of a broken home. But where sin abounds, grace much more abounds.
Amen. Well, we just appreciate the fact that you're watching Laymen Ministries Crosstalk today, and I hope this program has been helpful to you. If you'd like to know more about this ministry, write or call Laymen Ministries. That's 414 Zapada Road, St. Mary's, Idaho, 83861. Or you can get in touch with us on our website at www.lmn.org.
Please check out Pastor Richard O'Fill's website at www.revivalsermons.org.